as I speak, the United States prepares with Israel to launch a catastrophic attack on Iran, one calculated to last for weeks, but that could last for months or for years, and more importantly, which could destroy the entire economic, social, political, cultural, and scientific order which has sustained humanity, leading to a new age of unprecedented barbarism. Unprecedented barbarism from this final stage towards true world war is the combination, on the one hand, of a decay, a decadence in our culture and our civilization, which has allowed the most bestial men like Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu to rise to the top, in part by the abdication of all responsibility by those who should know better. But this is combined with an unprecedented expansion of technological capacity. In fact, new weapons are being developed as we speak, which are entirely off the record and which, as we know from the World Trade Center attacks, to this day, most people are afraid to even discuss. There can be no doubt that Israel and the United States intend to use any number of these new weapons in Iran, just as they used them in Palestine, just as they used them in Gaza and the West Bank, in a brutal effort to develop new technologies for social control and for the destruction of humanity. This bid for world war, which can take down all of us, but which will most certainly expose the United States to have been reduced to a caricature of what it had once been. This war must be stopped. Now, I do not speak with confidence that I, or those around us, or those around the world have the capacity at this moment to stop this tiny group of billionaires controlling Israel and the United States from giving the orders to those that obey them to launch this war with the assumption that once the war is started, that no one will be able to undo that process. However, I speak out to all of you around the world, and especially in the United States, my home country, in saying that we must be prepared in the most organized and the most serious manner to combat this drive for war. We may not be able to stop this initial attack, but we have entirely within our capacity the ability to organize ourselves into fearless bands within the United States who will, through our integrity, through our commitment to a democratic and righteous society, for our opposition to domination by the billionaire class, and by the use and opposition to the use of new forms of technology, from nanotechnology to electromagnetic radiation to the internet and smartphones used to dumb people down, to the use of biotechnology to attack the bodies of our citizens, that we will oppose all of these things. We will organize to oppose them, and we must adhere to the most fundamental principle, which is those of us who fight for peace must have at least the level of organization and the level of bravery of those who pursue war. In the United States, the most outstanding thing about this brutal drive for war against Iran, building on the last 25 years of brutal, pointless wars in search of wealth for the few. The most outstanding part about the policy debate has been the lack of any policy debate. The Democrats, who are presented to us over and over again by a bankrupt corporate media as some sort of alternative, have literally been totally silent on this issue of this catastrophic drive for war with Iran. They can say nothing more than that they should have a little bit more informed discussion in the Congress. None of them have been able, even those who supposedly are on the left, supposedly against war, none of them have been able to call out the tremendous institutional and ideological corruption which makes this possible. None of them are able to speak the truth and say that the Congress itself, the courts themselves, for that matter, the executive branch, have no power at all. Just like the robot at the end of the Terminator, all the skin, all the decoration has been torn away, and we're faced with this steel monster, the military-industrial complex, a web of billionaires in the United States, Israel, Great Britain, and around the world who are using the militaries of the United States, Israel, and other countries to carry out their dastardly deeds, to wring value and destroy communities to enrich themselves. No, the Democrats are not capable of any form of opposition because they are themselves on the take. We know that, not just from the Epstein files, which have revealed the putrid institutional corruption of the Democrats, not just from the fact that Democrats backed to the hilt the COVID reign of terror and backed all these deadly vaccines, not just because the Democrats refused to touch on the truth between 9/11, not just because Democrats refused to address false flag attacks on American citizens or directed attacks through targeted individuals through special access programs in the United States. The Democrats have nothing to say because they have no legitimacy. The Democrats are themselves but a little branch of the Republican Party, and as we can see, as we build up for the midterm elections, there will be no legitimate election at all, if one is even held. Most likely, this newly created state of world war will be more than enough reason to call off any midterm election. But if one is held, steps have already been taken, not only to eliminate any thoughtful person from running in the Democratic Party, let alone in the Green Libertarian Party, or let alone as an independent, but that within the Democratic Party itself, anyone who could possibly advocate anything else than world war and the domination of the billionaires through their multinational banks and multinational corporations like Amazon, Oracle, Palantir, and beyond, that no one who questions this new reality, this new drive for slavery, could possibly run in the Democratic Party. That is precisely the reason why I feel compelled, in spite of all that we have had to go through, to declare my desire, my intention to run for President of the United States. Of course, no one would possibly, in the current situation, allow someone like me in the United States, let alone to be in the United States, to operate in the United States, to speak the truth in the United States, let alone to run for public office, let alone to run for president. But what I do know, and what you know as well, is that the United States is a democratic republic, but it is by its intention, by its founding principles in the Declaration of Independence, it is a revolutionary tradition. That is the United States. That is what is written in our Declaration of Independence, and it is articulated throughout our political history and includes all sorts of aspects of the Constitution itself. The great revolutions of 1776 against the British East India Company and the British Empire, of 1861 against slavery and the planter class and the domination of this country by this concept of radical exploitation, and the other fights which have taken place in the United States against the terrible racist and totalitarian traditions of innate, inborn fascistic thinking, whether it was with Jim Crow and the KKK or other efforts to suppress the ordinary working woman, working man, people from different backgrounds and different ethnic identities. All of that must end. We must pull ourselves together as units, ready to fight in the true sense of the word, not for a moment, not for a weekend picnic, but in a focused and long-term manner. That is to say, that if the Trump administration is planning to attack Iran for weeks or months, we have to be prepared to launch our own efforts to overthrow the fascistic forces which have taken over most of the major countries in the world today. It can be done, and I call upon you to join us, to take the first steps, to organize, to imagine what is possible, to plan for it, and to take the first strong steps. Be not afraid. Fear no evil.